General Lady, her time has expired. I now recognize myself. Secretary Becerra, welcome back. As you may recall or may not recall, last time that you were before this committee, I asked you about HHS's vetting procedures in light of reports that unaccompanied children were being placed with sponsors who were exploiting these children. At that time, you stated that you believed sponsors were properly vetted by the HHS. In February, the HHS Office of Inspector General issued a report examining whether the Office of Refugee Resettlement took steps that were required to ensure the safe release of unaccompanied children through sponsor screening and follow-up calls. One of the findings from the report stated that the case files of 16% of unaccompanied children who were released to sponsors did not contain any documentation that a required safety check on the sponsor was conducted. Mr. Secretary, ORR received referrals for nearly 119,000, at least according to our records, of unaccompanied children in the fiscal year 23. That could mean over 19,000 children were released to sponsors without proper safety checks. Yes or no, do you still stand by your statement to me last year that HHS properly vetted sponsors?
I stand by my response, but Congressman, we need to clarify. You have mixed different numbers because the report that you reference, OIG, is from 2021, and now you mentioned 2023 numbers. And what you have to remember is in 2021, in the spring of 2021, we were barely coming in. We were taking over a program that had essentially been dismantled by the previous administration. So it was difficult to have spots for these children, and it was difficult to have an operation to be able to send them to sponsors as we're required by law. Things are very different from that point in 2021 today.
Then let's talk about that.
Okay.
My notebook is over there. I'd debate you a little further. But let's not quibble on that. What changes have been made as a result of this audit? And secondly, what changes have been made in regards to release of unaccompanied children to individuals who have previously sponsored children?
We have continued over those 3 years to improve the services that are provided to children. I would refer you to our foundational rule, which just became final this year, which takes a lot of those best practices. So today, for example, we have enough space for the children that are coming to us from the Department of Homeland Security. We're no longer having to use convention centers to house these kids because we didn't have the infrastructure in place. We established the infrastructure, which is the most important thing, because now they're getting the health care they need, they're getting the services they need as we prepare to send them to a vetted sponsor. Secondly, we're trying to follow up with your help in getting the resources. We're able to do not just the referral to a sponsor, but hopefully if you give us the resources, we'll be able to do follow-up. We don't have authority to do follow-up, or we're not required to, but we believe it's a good idea to do it. If you give us the resources, we'll continue to do more follow-up with these kids.
If a child who was under the care of HSS Unaccompanied Children program is found to be a victim of human labor trafficking, is the sponsorship immediately terminated, and does the federal government reclaim custody of the child?
So you've touched on the issue, the difficulty. Once we find the sponsor and transfer the child to the sponsor, we no longer have jurisdiction, authority over that child. And so when you ask, will the sponsorship be terminated? We don't have the authorities to just terminate, because we don't have sight on what happens to the child once the child is in the sponsor's hand. You are welcome, and I've offered this before, Congress is welcome to give us more authority so we can follow the child.
Immediate action is taken. Immediate action is taken, though, once you find out there's a problem there.
Yes, if we're alerted, we will contact the appropriate authorities. But we don't have jurisdiction to try to stop that activity. Remember, if you're talking about a child being exploited in labor, they're already outside of our custody, because the kids that are in our custody stay in our custody. They don't go out and work.
Are there circumstances under which the child will be returned to an immediate relative of the original sponsor?
I'm sorry.
Are there circumstances under which the child will be returned to an immediate relative of the original sponsor?
That is our priority, to make sure that we can place the child closest to whom they know, So a parent, if there's a parent available, an immediate relative, we seek to have them
Is
if
there
they
a
pass the
vetting process for them as well?
Yes, there is. No one gets to sponsor a child without going through a vetting process, even if they're the parents.
Well, we hope that that continues, if that's the change that's been made.
Yes.
My time has expired. I yield back. Now I recognize the gentleman from California, Mr. Decano.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Secretary, welcome. Thank you for being here today. I'm thrilled to see that the Department of Health and Human Services recently finalized and released its regulations under Section 1557 of the Affordable Care Act, and many thanks to you and your team for your diligent work. Mr. Secretary, can you